All right, it is 7 p.m. On the nose. So we will be having our Human Affairs Committee. Is February 15th, 2024, and we're in the Aldermanic Chamber. Let's start by taking the roll call of attendance.
Alderman Thomas Lopez, Chair.
I am here.
Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly, Vice Chair.
I'm here.
Alderwoman at Large Gloria Timmons. Alderman Tim Sennett is here, and Alderman Chris Thibodeau.
Here.
We have 4 in attendance.
Starting with public comment. Would anybody, members of the public, like to make public comment? Seeing none, we are going to, without objection, swap our.
I was going to make the motion if you want, but you go ahead.
Without objection, because hey, Mason's rules is useful sometimes. We're switching discussion with our new business resolutions. We do still have to do communications. We do communications and then?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do communications, then we'll do, there's no unfinished business, but we'll roll right through that. Then new business resolutions, and then we'll go back to presentations.
Communication has been received from Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager, regarding Urban Programs Department updates for January 2024.
All right, without objection, we will accept this and place it on file.
So we are on to new business.
No unfinished resolutions, any?
No, there are none.
Cross that out. Okay, and now new business resolutions.
All right, Resolution 2418 has been removed from the agenda. Resolution 24019, relative to the acceptance of an additional $377,874 from the State of New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services into Transit Grant Activity, Federal Transit Authority FTA operating grant. I will make a motion to recommend final passage of R24019.
All right, and I see Director Sullivan is here, looking like he wants to make some comments. Would you like to introduce this for us?
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matt Sullivan, Community Development Division Director for the City of Nashua. This is a recurring grant through the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services in the amount of $377,874. These funds specifically are provided every 2 years to the City of Nashua for the dedicated purpose of offering free transportation on fixed transportation services, or traditional bus route service, to seniors 60 years and older. And the way this program works is essentially the state provides us with the funding. When a senior goes to ride the bus, all they need to do is to actually show their ID, showing their age, and they're able to ride the fixed route transportation service at no cost. We have tremendous success with this program, whether it's transportation to grocery stores, to different medical appointments or other. This is one of the things that we're really proud of and one of our most significant rider groups. And so we're certainly supportive and ask for your support in accepting these monies this evening. Happy to answer any questions that the committee might have, but look forward to your support on this.
All right, so the obvious questions, I think, are, is there any sort of match on our side?
Alderman Lopez, there's no match required from the city. I would just remind the committee that the city does provide an overall match to the transportation service as part of the annual operating budget. But those monies that are in the annual budget do not go directly as match to this grant because there's no match required for it.
Okay, any questions from other committee members? Seeing none, can I get a motion to?
We already have the motion.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And we are recommending final passage, or favorable passage.
We have a hand up over here.
Nope. Alderman Kelly.
If I could ask a question of Director Sullivan. I was just wondering about R28018, why it was removed.
Happy to address that. Mr. Chair, R2418 was removed from the agenda last night. The reason being, it's actually quite a complicated reason, but essentially we need to resolve the source of funds for the city match to that program. For those that may recall, this has been funded in a variety of different ways on the city end, whether through escrows, through the Mines Park Trust Fund, through Sustainability Department budget. It's also been funded between different fiscal years in the past, which introduces some complications. And so what we're trying to do is just make sure that we're taking the money on the city side from the right place before bringing it forward to the board for full consideration. In the heat of the moment last week when submitting this for legislation, we decided that we may want to change direction, and so we decided to pull it from the agenda. But it will certainly be back before you, most likely for your next Human Affairs Committee meeting. I don't want this to imply that this grant won't be happening or that treatment won't be happening. It's just a matter of accounting.
Thank you. I wasn't at the meeting where it was discussed, so I just wanted to make sure we were
course.
getting the dollars, because I know it's an important program.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Always welcome to do a point of order, because we need point of clarity, we need to explain what's going on, so, good timing.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk?
New business ordinances, there are none.
All right, so we can move that. We do have something tabled in committee, but I think we were gonna do the presentations first. So,
All right.
next up, we have,
Actually, is that the CDBG? I think we have to take it off the table each time we discuss it, if these people are talking about it.
I thought I think, yes, maybe, but
I think she's right.
there's a different, yeah, it's United Way, you're right, okay. So why don't we take that off of the table? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
All right. So we have taken that off of the table without objection. And United Way, if you'd like to come up, have a seat, or stand at the podium, or whatever you want to do your presentation.
Well, I'll have a seat if that's okay.
Yep, yep.
I think we technically have to move to recommend final passage, so it's in front of us.
Yeah.
Would you like to
Sorry, I'm
be
being
that?
very technical tonight.
Nothing
but-
wrong with that? Would you like to be that motion
Sure.
or?
We have to do this with the budget every time we do the budget, so I'm assuming we should do it with this as well.
That's fair.
So we'll call for
We
the
take
vote.
it off the table, and then we talk about it, and we put it back on the table.
All right, so let's actually, formally vote for taking it off the table first. All those in favor of taking it off the table, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And,
I move to recommend final
Alderman
passage
Kelly. Okay.
of Article 3.
So the motion on the floor is to recommend final passage, and now we can discuss it, and now we can have a presentation.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Alderman Kelly, I thought you said that you were making a motion to take me off the table, so I appreciate
no,
that that's
no.
not the case. Thank you for listening to me tonight. I understand after the presentation at your last meeting by Manager Long about the CDBG funds for the United Way Tech Connect program, that you had some questions. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what that's about and what the funds would be used for. We've launched, well, let me backtrack a little bit. During the pandemic, we cut our teeth quite a bit on the on initiatives to distribute refurbished technology and also internet connectivity, mostly in support of local students. And over the course of 2020 and 2021, we're able to take in, refurbish, and distribute back out over 2,000 Chromebooks and over 500 Wi-Fi hotspots to connect local students to what they needed to do for their homework. So along the way, we learned quite a bit about what it takes to bring in technology, refurbish it with volunteers, spruce it up, if you will, to make it usable by the public, and get it back out into people's hands. More recently, we've become involved with, more broadly, digital equity initiatives in general. And if you think about where our society is going, we have increasingly a landscape of digital haves and have-nots. And most of us here, I'm certain, are in the digital haves realm of the world. We have in our pockets a smartphone with which we can connect to the internet, with which we can do miraculous things like apply for city services, apply for permits, make appointments with our doctors, do telehealth, access mental health services, apply for jobs, a huge variety of different things that we can do with that technology if we have the ability to use it by A, having it in the first place, and B, being able to connect to the internet secondly. So our program that we've relaunched, we're calling it Tech Connect, allows us to take in used laptops primarily, tablets, and smartphones, working with volunteers, refurbish those so that they're usable, sometimes replacing parts, in many cases upgrading software, installing new software like Word or Zoom or Excel, depending upon the piece of equipment, and then distributing that out to people in the public, primarily people who are with no other criteria than being very low income. Back in the day, we didn't have that criteria when we were supporting students, since that time, the schools have taken over really that space. It's no longer necessary, but we're focusing our efforts more on very low-income individuals. So if you think about people who are potentially unsheltered, homeless individuals, what needs they might have, or people who are low-income, homebound seniors who need to either connect to the community at large or to telehealth or mental health, those are the clients that we're looking to serve with this program. And so the funds will be used really to support those initiatives, supporting bringing in, refurbishing, and distributing out technology to low-income individuals, and where needed, accessing the internet if possible. I would say, do you have any questions about that?
As a point of clarification, Urban Manager Long, just to point out, this is an amendment to the 2021 to 2025 reallocation fund.
Yep.
I just thought it might be good to differentiate that because it's
We have
different from the other CDBGs that will be coming.
Good evening. This is Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager. Yes, this would involve reallocation of our CDBG funds through the CARES Act, which is a separate allocation with some separate requirements from our general community development block grant funds.
And I think one of those requirements was this is a project from a pre-existing year that we had money that was reallocated for?
That's correct. We had given $25,000 to a business that unfortunately did not make it through the pandemic, and therefore those funds had to be returned and are therefore available for use for a qualifying activity.
And to that point, Director Appleberg, is that, I guess that's your appellation here?
That works.
Your program was started that long ago and it is linked to that as well, so it has a special eligibility here.
Yeah, so the program that we started back during the pandemic was obviously part of a pandemic response, albeit not really at the time would I say CDBG eligible, because the response was not really targeted towards low-income individuals. It was targeted towards the community of students at large and their needs. The evolution is what has made this really CDBG dollars eligible, because it's really targeted at very low-income individuals who, for a variety of reasons, are affected in the longer term by the fallout from the pandemic, because they have faced now, post-pandemic recession, being evicted from their homes, or they're part of the housing crisis in general, or they can't access some of the services that came out of the pandemic. For example, one of my board members is Dr. Whitaker from Greater Nashua Mental Health, and if you talk with her about mental health supports, she'll wax poetic about the ability to deliver many of those services through a telemedicine model. However, you got to have somebody at the other end who's able to do that in order to provide those services. So if you think about low income homebound seniors, for example, Meals on Wheels typical clients, they don't have that ability. So there's a variety of services that are now available that can't be accessed. And so there is a tie-in to the pandemic in that way, particularly.
It's also worth pointing out that during the pandemic, the state of New Hampshire did a lot of upgrading of its electronic access mechanisms, and so they didn't exactly roll all that back, to the previous system. So things like New Hampshire Easy are more central to your resource services than ever. You can solve problems like communicating with the Social Security office or applying for IDs or that kind of stuff, which can be significant barriers to people who are either low income or unhoused, that you need computer access to be able to do. And you're in a population that is moving around a lot, is struggling to find where their next opportunity is going to be, and they can't afford to restart all of their applications and everything because they didn't have a computer nearby.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I'll give you an example that just makes it a little bit real. I was, you're not supposed to do this, but I was driving down the road one day talking with an individual who is unsheltered and homeless, living in his truck out at the Walmart on Amherst Street. And we were talking about some of the resources that might be available for him to access in the community. I had suggested that he reach out to Joanne Perez over at Family Promise, who provides diversion support services. He said, oh, great, well, how do I get a hold of Joanne? And my instinct was to say, well, you just Google it, Google Family Promise, it'll come right up. And he said, well, I don't actually have a phone that I can do that on. And so that's kind of eye-opening if you think about it. A person who has no phone, no computer, no technology, no ability, it's not like you can walk down to the nearest phone booth and punch in 411 anymore. It just doesn't work, right? So, so I pull out my phone. Well, I was on my phone in the car, and I Googled it while I'm driving down Daniel Webster Highway at unreasonable speeds and gave him the number. That's the type of thing we're talking about. Access to services and facilitating that ability to connect to the broader world so that people just don't get left behind.
All right. Any questions from the committee members?
Yes.
Comment.
Yeah.
So more challenging, yes, but all of these things are still accessible. It might be a little more challenging, but they are accessible.
Well, they are, but much more difficult. I agree with that. Absolutely. It's not
Just
like
point of clarity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's not like for example, New Hampshire Employment Security has put up, has put a lock on their door and said, no, you're no longer welcome to come here in person. However, it is much easier to do things if you have the ability to access them. It's just a question of what is possible and what's more possible. I agree with that.
As a point of observation, it's easier to communicate via email and have that be your location because it travels with you versus trying to hold for general delivery, having to go to the post office to pick that up, or having to switch some assemblage of different mailing addresses. There are still paper services available for people who use it, but computers do offer a lot of other opportunities too. For example, I use them a lot because reading anything small, like even this is large print for me, is majorly challenging, and all of the state paperwork is very, very involved. The small print is usually like how often you need to check in or who you need to call to follow up. So there's a lot of adaptability that comes with having electronic devices as well. Any follow-up, Alderman Timmon? I don't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine. No, I'm good.
Thank you.
Alderman Kelly?
Thank you, and thank you for coming in and having a discussion with us. I know we just wanted to hear a little bit more about what you're doing, and I think your anecdotes were really important in terms of making sure we're aligned with the action plan and what we're trying to do. Obviously, we can't fund everything, but that's sort of supposed to be the parameters and how we look at funding going in. So it was great to hear the work that you're doing, and I think you bring up great points about equity and access to the types of things that we're trying to continue to build in the city. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If there's no further questions, we can call a question here. All those in favor of recommending final passage, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And this will be taken up at the Board of Aldermen to confirm it at our next meeting, I'm sure.
If there are any further questions that come up after the facts, please feel free to reach out to me directly or through Manager Long. Glad to help out. And thank you for your support. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Mr. Clerk.
Right, I believe that was our first discussion presentation.
Yep, what's our next one?
All right. So next up is fiscal year 2025 CDBG and Home Annual Action Plan Draft.
As we learn-
For the presentation.
I think I commented on this, and I shouldn't have.
Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager. There's not a lot to say about the draft plan at this point. A lot of it is placeholder information because you have not made any recommendations for funding yet, obviously. And also, unfortunately, we haven't received our final grant allocations. I think discussing that in March, I have ideas on what we can do regarding that. I think it's likely by the time of our March meeting, we will still not have our final grant allocations. But there's ways of building in contingency plans so that when we do receive the grant allocations, money can quickly be shifted into place, and you don't have to repeat the entire process. But I did want to let you know that, yes, the draft plan was made available electronically through my monthly report, and if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, I'm very happy to hear them.
Is that available on the city's website under programs?
It is
I know it does get put out when it's more formalized.
Yes, not yet. My plan is to put it up on the website after you voted on your funding allocation, so there's a bit more meat on the bones to the plan.
All right, so everybody keep watching here. And we'll work.
And so that'll be after the March Human Affairs Committee meeting.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Oh, Alderman Kelly, sorry.
Yeah, just a organizational question. You said that we could potentially put contingencies in. As I've experienced it, we don't know what we're gonna get, so I still feel like it would have to come back to this board. Is that correct?
We have flexibility there, so a lot of it will determine on what the committee feels comfortable doing. But some of the possibilities there are voting using the estimates we currently have and then saying we will increase all the awards or decrease all the award proportionately. Or another example is, if we end up having more money than we thought, we will fund activity XYZ that we initially did not fund. Or if we have less money, we will cut activity ABC. There's all kinds of different things like that. And if you do it that way, then you don't have to repeat public comment processes. Otherwise you do, which we can do. That's absolutely an option we have.
I don't see the need for that, but it was an interest. I think we just always come back and talk about it. So I appreciate and applaud you for finding more flexible ways for us to get this through and get the money to the organizations.
Fingers crossed that HUD gives us like $10 million extra and we have to have more public comment.
That would be great.
It does happen.
It does?
We get more sometimes.
All right, any further questions for Manager Long? Seeing none, I guess we're gonna move on to Lamprey. Is Lamprey first?
Nope.
Who's up first?
So we
Go
have
ahead, Clark.
fiscal year 2025 CDBG grant application presentations. First up, we have Nashua Children's Home.
Nashua Children's Home, come on up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thanks for having us here tonight.
Oh, sorry, just a point of order. You want to use your name and your address for the
Sure,
transcriber?
yes. David Viliati, I'm the former executive director of Nashua Children's Home at 125 Amherst Street. I just retired from that position after 38 years last month. This is Matt Fentros, current executive director of Nashua Children's Home at 125 Amherst Street in Nashua. I'm going to talk a little bit about Nashua Children's Home generally, and then Matt will talk about the proposal that's before this committee. Nashua Children's Home, as many of you know, has been in existence serving this community for 120 years now, founded as the Nashua Protestant Orphanage Association in 1903. We can have as many as 46 boys and girls between 7 and 18 years of age living at Nashua Children's Home, referred by the department, by the Division for Children, Youth, and Families. Typically, about half of those boys and girls are City of Nashua residents. We have an adage at Nashua Children's Home that geography is our enemy. We work much more effectively with children from this community. And it's really simple to understand why that is. They remain members of this community. They continue to attend Nashua Public Schools. They continue to have visitation with their families, although their families are going through a period of disruption. Most boys and girls that we have do return to their families of origin. They're able to participate in community activities, so we're able to kind of keep things intact for them while they're living with us and return to their families of origin, return and maintain their enrollment in local schools. So I mean, programmatically, we're much more effective when we serve the City of Nashua residents. There's also a very pronounced financial advantage for the taxpayers of this city when that happens. And I'll explain that to you. If Nashua students that are identified with special education needs are court-ordered to other residential facilities, and this may be the Spalding Youth Center in Tilton or Easter Seals in Manchester, or in other programs further north, Mount Prospect Academy. When that happens, they're referred by court order, and this Nashua School District really has no input as to whether that happens. What the Nashua School District does receive, though, is a bill for special education services. And that bill for special education services is $57,000 per year per student. So that's the cost that would be incurred by the Nashua School District and the taxpayers in Nashua if children are placed at facilities other than Nashua Children's Home. They stay at Nashua Children's Home, they continue to attend Elm Street Middle School, they continue to attend Nashua North. There's no additional burden to the taxpayers of the city, and it's in the best interest of those children and families educationally as well. So, I mean, again, Nashua Children's Home for 120 years has served the taxpayers of the city, the at-risk children and families, and we're here again tonight. We really appreciate the help that's come to us through the CDBG program in prior years. It's really been a godsend to the projects that we've had. And Matt is here today to tell you about the latest project that we've asked your assistance for. Thank you.
Thank you. We're here today to talk about our application for the grant money. We're looking to upgrade our electronic monitoring system and a security system that we have at Nashua Children's Home. Currently, we have a system that's 20 years old. It often crashes during the overnight hours. Our awake overnight staff, our resources are very limited. They rely on the video monitoring system around campus to keep an eye on the outside transitional living program, which is just next door to our main 125 Amherst Street, which houses 18 to 22-year-old adults who otherwise would be at risk for homelessness and being unhoused. So the current system that we have is very slow. It doesn't start right away. It takes a second or two of motion to really start picking things up. It crashes often. We have nights where everything's dark, so very out of date. It's run on its own modem right now, so we're looking to update that. The new monitoring and security would also add a layer of security for the staff, children, and numerous visitors that we have visit our program throughout the day and throughout the weekend hours, many visits on our campus. So currently we do not have any security features looking over our parking lot or any of our exterior facilities. It's mostly indoors for transitional living and residential areas. So adding that as well would be big. A lot of the systems that are currently in use that we've researched include some notifications about unusual activity. It can be linked directly to tablets and smart devices that would alert staff, if certain situations popped up. And like I had mentioned, the big piece for us is overlooking the parking lot and having that connected to smart devices and keeping everyone abreast of what's going on is the big thing. So, any questions on any of that?
Any questions from the board?
Sure.
Alderman Satter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is more just, wrapping my hands around the CDBG process and all that. Do you have a proposal out and a quote on that from a vendor to get that going?
We do.
Should this be granted and funded?
Yes, we have had a quote come through, and we're sitting on that right now.
Great.
Yep.
All right, so as discussed, we're doing presentations so that you're able to kind of present what you're what you're applying for in a meaningful way, because when we start looking at the budget items, all we really get is a line item and maybe a summary. So definitely the context is helpful. Are there specific risks that you might want to identify or regarding like that population? Is there, you said there's transitional housing, so you'd imagine youth with a little bit less structures, oversights, maybe more behavioral presentation.
Sure.
That kind of stuff?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, two things. One of the risks that we often see, the 18 to 22-year-olds in that transitional living house, they have some strict rules around maintaining employment, strict rules around visitation hours, coming and going. They don't have strict staff supervision because they are aged out of the system. So that's one risk. The other risk, as it relates to our residential program, we do have some kids who are placed with us that have no contact orders with their parents. I think, one of the new systems that we looked at, it can identify license plates, immediately, and any, threat of danger can alert staff right away. It's an expensive security process, but it gives us a peace of mind around protecting the kids and staff.
I know periodically there is alerts through Nashua PD if a juvenile goes missing, and obviously your primary purpose or focus is to make sure that doesn't happen, but if it does, it probably would help to have a camera that could identify when they left and what direction they went in if we're going to start looking for them.
Certainly, and being in a position prior to my current position where I was in charge of the building and had contact with the police when we did have runaways, one of the first questions they asked, which way did they head on Amherst Street? And more than half the time we're unable to give a direction because they sprint so fast, or staff are tied up with something else. Being able to have that playback feature on our exterior cameras would really help and assist the Nashua Police and our programs and locating the children much quicker.
All right. Well, if there's no further questions.
I have questions.
Oh,
Just never.
Kelly. She knows to yell if I miss her.
I'll start throwing things at you. So oftentimes when CDBG comes before us, we're not fully able to fund everything. So one of the questions we like to ask is, if you didn't get the full allocation, how would you address or change what you do?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, when that happens, I mean, we try to access other means of support. We would apply to different foundations, corporations, or some of our donors. We have a pretty wide donor base. So, I mean, we do have a history of if the CDB allocation falls short of what we're able to do, then we'll seek funding from other sources. We've been able to make that work.
I think that was your answer last year. If
Practice.
I could do a follow-up. If I could follow up.
Oh, please. Don't
I
be throwing
actually-
things.
I actually don't have a question about the electronic system, but I was trying to follow the conversation around the out-of-district
Yes.
placements. I wasn't understanding, like, we have out-of-placement districts because, or, out-of-district placements because we can't do the work.
Sure.
requirements. But what you were saying was a little bit different.
It is a little
I
bit
didn't
different.
fully answer.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about with the other district placements generally involve those placements that are at the initiative of the school district. Where there's a recognition that this particular student requires more support than we can provide in district, so we'll refer them to another program. And I'm talking about are cases where you have a Nashua student that may or may not be doing okay within the public schools, but their home situation is such that they need to be placed in a residential facility. And if they're placed if they're court ordered into a residential facility, say they're court ordered to Spalding Youth Center, then without any really input from the school district, they're placed at the Spalding Youth Center, and the school district then is on the hook for the special education component of that. There's a threshold of that, so the placement the educational costs may be more than $57,000 per year, but the school district pays $57,000 per year. The Department of Education then pays the rest.
I understand now. Thank
Sure.
you very much.
Okay, certainly.
I would also imagine that from a social emotional perspective, as a therapist, I've worked with more than a couple of kids who have been relocated for one reason or the other, and it's such a jarring experience to be moved out of your housing situation, even if it's something that is ultimately stable or residential to the effect that, to the best efforts of National Children's Home. It helps to have some normalcy, like at least you can see your friends at school, or at least you can see the teacher that, maybe is your anchor or that type of thing. So
And to have frequent visitation with your family. I mean, we have situations where we have kids that not only can't stay at home, but they may be placed at Dover Children's Home, or may be placed at Chase Home on the Seacoast. And we say geography is our enemy, that with the population that we work with, being an hour and a half away, they may as well be placed in Minnesota, as far as the frequency with which they're able to maintain contact with their families. And we have kids that, I mean, it may not be the case that they're able to return to their family living situation in a brief period of time, but they can maintain membership with their family by maintaining that connection, by maintaining that frequency of face-to-face contact with them. So it really is important to try to keep kids as much as we can in their home community.
Any follow-up questions?
Might just a question for knowledge.
Sure.
So you can house 46
Yes.
children?
Yes.
What is your current capacity?
Right now it's about 39.
We have 38 currently living there.
That's utilization rate, 38?
38 out of the 46 beds available.
Okay.
Clarification on that.
Alderman Satt.
Thank you. Of those 38, how many are out-of-district placements?
About half of the kids that live with us are Nashua kids.
Okay.
And I would say that of the 38 kids that live with us, only 8 or so attend the Nashua Children's Home School. I mean, the others attend local public schools.
Mhm.
So,
Clarification on that, actually. more just for my own edification. I was actually friends with a couple of Nashua Children's Home students growing up. Relative to the proximity of the building there, I went to Charlotte Ave and then I went to Pennachuck.
Okay.
Say you do get a Nashua student that was attending, we'll just say fairgrounds.
Yes.
Is there an opportunity, if they should be placed within your care, for them to continue attending that school?
Certainly.
Even though you may be districted to Pennachuck?
Certainly. I mean, it's the bottom line is it's the call of the Nashua School District as far as where they attend. However, the experience has been that we have kids that are referred to us, are placed with us. They may be attending fairgrounds. They come to us on a Wednesday evening. Thursday morning, they're still back at fairgrounds.
That's
if they don't miss a
fantastic.
day of school. Yeah, so typically that's what happens. I mean, typically they remain in the same school that they were in prior to placement with us, yes.
And currently, we do have middle school students at all 3 middle schools that attend, so.
Okay. Well, I certainly appreciate you coming in here with this context for what you do. I think most people are aware of Nashua Children's Home. I don't know that maybe necessarily everybody's familiar with the gravity of what you do, but you know what you're speaking here to tonight with the electronic surveillance system. Most long-term granite staters are familiar with some of the tragedies that have occurred not too far outside the bounds of Nashua relative to what you're talking about.
Sure.
And, you know, we certainly all shudder to think of something like that happening. So that context is really helpful for what we do here. Thank you.
Yeah, and we see some of those children firsthand that have been directly affected by those tragedies that you're talking about, so, yeah.
All right, looks like everybody has asked the questions they need. We have the information we need, and we look forward to checking out your application as it comes.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Lamprey Healthcare.
Presentation on
Got this presentation sitting on my computer, and now I can finally press the buttons.
Yes.
Mr. Clerk, would you please press the button?
You love pressing
I'm gonna break it.
buttons, don't you?
Well, she does have the clicker. You can point that at us and try to make it work. If not, we can certainly
Advance for me.
help you along the way.
Great, Thank you.
Just don't forget your name and address for the transcribers, please.
Great. I'm Sue Durkin. I'm one of the co-CEOs at Lamprey Healthcare, and we are located at 22 Prospect Street. So I wanted to first begin with just an overview of who we are. I'm not sure if people are familiar with our organization. Let me, okay.
It worked.
Hey, look at that. So far, so good. We are the first federally qualified health center in New Hampshire. We were established in 1971, and our mission is to provide high-quality medical care and wraparound services to people regardless of the ability to pay. I put a few little emblems on the bottom because we have been recognized for attaining quality outcomes in the top 10% of health centers nationally, as well as being recognized for our ability to address social risk factors and to use technology to advance quality. We also are a patient-centered medical home, which means we kind of design our services focused around the patient, not focused around a medical system. So we have 3 main health centers, Nashua, Raymond, and Newmarket, and we provide full-scope primary health care. So with that, that includes access to a nurse to talk to 24/7. We have behavioral health services, psychiatry, diabetes education, prenatal care, early childhood development screenings. I kind of have a long list, just bear with me. Access to free breast and cervical cancer screening services, substance use treatment, hepatitis C treatment in-house, access to food resources, and interpretation. And we also have a very close working relationship with the Dental Connection for dental care. So in calendar year 2022, we provided care to 5,630 patients in Nashua, and that was through 22,000 almost 22,000 medical visits. To give you an idea of the patients we're seeing in Nashua, 81% are from the city of Nashua, 45% have incomes less than or equal to 100% of the federal poverty guidelines. 63% identify as being a minority. 28% are uninsured. 42% have Medicaid. And 60% are best served in a language other than English. So, to get to our proposal, as a community health center, we're really charged with taking care of the community, not just the patients that are able to make it in our doors. And really to this end, in 2021, we developed mobile health services, and we have partnered with several organizations in the community to really reach out to those people who are most vulnerable. So this is a picture of where we park at Stepping Stones. At this time, we're providing the mobile health services at Stepping Stones, Nashua Soup Kitchen and Shelter's Quincy Street location, and then we have a location inside their shelter. So the next one, oh, here we go, okay. This is just a picture of us at the NSKS Quincy Street location, and that is very busy. And then this is a picture of, oh.
Beck?
Okay. Okay, thank you. This is a picture of our exam room and our medical provider at Nashua Soup Kitchen and Shelter, their new Spring Street location. When we go to any of these locations, we bring a consistent team, and that's a medical provider, community health worker, and a nurse. Our nurses who go out in the community in Nashua also have additional certifications in diabetes education and in addiction recovery. We try to bring the same team every week so that patients really develop relationships, and it's a really, it's an engagement model more than anything. Our big focus is really to connect with patients and reduce barriers for them accessing healthcare. So we do go to each of these locations for a very limited time each week, but it serves as an access point for patients because they can just walk in to any of these locations for us, and then they have access to the whole host of services that I mentioned earlier. So in calendar year 2023, we provided 519 medical visits with our mobile health unit in Nashua and at the shelter location. And we really focus on just meeting people where they're at. A lot of the people that we work with have had a lot of trouble accessing traditional medical care, keeping appointments. They may have mental health or substance use issues, living in extreme poverty, and a lot of times experiencing homelessness. So we're asking for funding to help support these off-site services. We are able to bill for services to patients who may have Medicaid, for example, but as I mentioned earlier, a lot of our patients are uninsured. And really the kind of work that we're providing in this model is very time and resource intensive. So even if we bill for services, it's not like something we see in the health center where we can take care of it in a 20-minute appointment. We have to think through, you know, how is that patient going to get their medication? What's happening at their home? Or do they even have a home, and do we have to connect them with a shelter? So the time and resources necessary are really not met through a traditional medical funding model. We have gotten some limited funding through AmeriHealth Caritas and recently through the opioid abatement funds. And we are really reaching out to you all to help us with funding to help close the gap. And we really want to sustain these services. We really feel that by partnering with these different organizations in the community, we're really able to provide necessary and compassionate care to people that traditionally would be using the ER or going without. So I'd love to entertain any questions, and I really just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the needs we're seeing and the way we're trying to deliver services.
Alderman Kelly.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing. As I'm on the soup kitchen board, so I know how important it is to meet people where they are when they need these services. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I don't know if you mentioned if you were looking to just sustain the program, add more visits, look at future expansions. What is the goal?
Well, at this point, we're trying to sustain over the next year. We definitely, particularly at the Nashua Soup Kitchen shelter locations, we're seeing a lot of growth. And eventually we will want to build upon them. But right now, we started them using COVID money that we were getting, and that COVID money went away. So we're kind of, you know, we don't want to be starting something in the community and not being able to sustain it. So our first goal is really to sustain where we're at and continue. You know, the more patient stories we have, the more success. I think we're very well positioned to get some additional funding.
Thank you. Can I have a follow-up?
Absolutely.
So you mentioned that when you go, you have a 3-person team. My question was around interpretations and whether or not, how are you doing that, and are you doing it with the mobile center?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of the staff we have are either bi or trilingual, but that's not all the time. So we do always have a backup plan. We have interpretive services that we can dial up through a phone. And we also have multiple interpreters that are at our main location at Prospect Street. So if we do have staff going out that don't speak multiple languages, we have them on call, and we can patch them through for interpretation.
Great. Those are my questions. Oh, I guess I'll ask my other question. If you didn't get the full amount of funding, what would that look like?
So we are very motivated to continue this. We have seen, you know, we've tapped into a group of people that really were not coming in our doors and not getting health care. So we're just really focused on being very diligent about every possible opportunity for funding to help support this.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I had a couple of questions about Federal Qualified Healthcare Center. Aren't there different subcategories of that? Can you tell us a little bit more about what that ranking is?
Sure. So we are, it's like our grant is a Section 330. So we provide, you know, overall primary care services to patients. As I mentioned, we serve everyone in the community, but they are particularly charged with serving people who don't have insurance and making sure there's a safety net for them. You can get additional funding and be kind of a designated location to work with patients experiencing homelessness. We do not have that funding, but we feel that although we don't have that funding, it's well within our mission to work with these individuals and assist them as well. And then there's also funding for rural locations, but Nashua wouldn't qualify for that.
It's a stretch to call it rural.
Yeah.
Alderman Thibodeau.
You'd mentioned Nashua and 2 other communities, Hudson and
Just
or Ray?
greater Nashua is what we're focusing here. So it's the locations that we're looking to fund are Stepping Stones, which is right in town, the Quincy Street Mobile Health Unit location, and then our new shelter site that we have built, you know, in the Spring Street location. So we do have patients that come in from other locations, but we do find quite a few are without transportation and walk to these multiple locations for access.
Okay. Yeah, the point of my questioning was you had mentioned the 3 other towns, so I wanted to just bring for clarity whether the funds that you're looking for are for the Nashua or for the other communities that you
Yes.
guys visit. So that's, I was looking for that.
I
clarity.
understand what your question was, I'm sorry.
That's
So
okay.
we have 3 main health centers, one's in Newmarket, one's in Raymond, and today, this proposal is strictly focused on Nashua.
Okay.
But just to give you a larger context, that we do have these 3 locations. Yes.
All right. Additional questions? All right, thank you for your presentation and the context and the work you guys are doing in the community.
Thank you very much.
Where's he go? All right,
Okay.
next up, it looks like we have Nashua Powell. Just a reminder, remember username and address.
Hello, I am Jen Miller, Development Director at Nashua Powell at 52 Ash Street. So thank you for having us today. As I mentioned, I'm Jen, Development Director. We have been with Powell for 8 years, so hopefully I can answer any questions that you have for me this evening. A short overview of the grant in front of you is that it's going to support impactful programming at the Youth Safe Haven and St. Pat's Gym, which is serves more than 275 youth in Nashua. Nashua PAL as a whole serves 2,000 youth in Greater Nashua. We have multiple youth sports programs. Education, activity, and leadership are the focus of our mission. And this is specific for supporting the after-school program and basketball program at the St. Pat's Gym. Nashua PAL is working to expand our after-school and summer programs for youth, specifically at the New Monaghan Manor and in additional parts of the city, which means that we are facing increasing costs, of course, for supplies, staffing, food, and other program necessities. So this grant is focused on offsetting 50% of the cost of the long-term lease that we have for our St. Pat's basketball gym, which is located on Spring Street. And it lives underneath the Youth Safe Haven program budget. PAL has invested significantly in the St. Pat's gym over the last 8 years, including a new gym floor, several resurfacings, divider, which allows for multiple program spaces, and then most recently, PAL funded the separation of a heating system that was shared between the gym and the new Nashua Soup Kitchen shelter. So we've invested in this so that it meets better needs for the community. Because this gym provides such a great activity space. It includes activities like basketball, soccer, volleyball, cheerleading, and much more. It also provides youth in our community with a warm and safe place to go to get moving and engage with their peers and with mentors. Both the Youth Safe Haven and the gym program are provided 100% free to all youth. And the space is also utilized by additional community partners. So the youth that would be supported by this grant are predominantly low-income minority youth. We just wanted to say first that we are very grateful for previous CDBG support for many of our physical projects for the Youth Safe Haven. And this one is a bit of a different one for us, focusing on offsetting some of the cost for rent for a long-term lease, in one of our programs to sustain that over the years. So I'd be happy to answer any further questions that you have.
I would just like to note that you also replaced the lights in that gym so that they're lights that turn on in less than 20 minutes and don't look like they're going to fall.
Yeah.
So the Powell Gym is
Big improvement.
the St. Patrick's Gym is a legendary storied building, and it definitely needed a little bit of updating.
Yeah.
Alderman Kelly?
You just knew I had a question? I did. So, great work with the gym, and it sounds like it's an incredible asset. I have not been under the previous lights that Alderman Lopez pointed out. I just wanted to ask about the specifics around, you said a long-term lease. What does that look like, and how much would this cover, or how long?
Sure. So this grant application is for 50% of a year.
Okay.
And so we have a long-term lease that there is not technically an end in sight for it. I think the current terms are renegotiating, I believe, in 5 years.
And if I could follow up.
Mhm.
So, did you also say that the after-school program needed funding, or that's just where it's housed? I just want to make sure I'm
Oh,
understanding.
no, I'm sorry. To clarify, so the Youth Safe Haven houses the project budget for the St. Pat's Gym as well. So offsetting this funding for the St. Pat's Gym would allow us to reinvest extra into expanding the program.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, Youth Safe Haven is an old program, because I think I was in AmeriCorps, and it was the Youth Safe Haven program back when I was doing 21st Century, like 20 years ago.
Yes.
So it is kind of a long-term one, and I think the title also is where some of the employment funding and like hierarchy comes from. But there's the Youth Safe Haven site at 52 Ash Street, which is, you know, the ground floor and then the basement of the, and then on the top there's a boxing gym. Has a big basketball court in the front, and then it's sort of in I don't know how formal it is, but it supervises the futsal court across the street, and in general it's a very good neighborhood stabilizing presence. PAL teachers and kids active on Ash Street are kind of like keeping an eye out for things that might be, you know, otherwise unnoticed over at the skate park or at Reverend Perkins Park and all that kind of stuff. One thing that used to happen at the Safe Haven site, and one of the reasons I know about the lights is because we were trying to do stuff with alternative youth dances and that kind of stuff. Is that something that St. Patrick's might be doing or hosting?
Yes, so there has been talks of that for many years. It's definitely been a request from a lot of our kids. So we've definitely, we've done different types of events there as far as our force program. Cheerleaders have done different types of cheerleading, and force has done their awards ceremony there and different pieces like that. So it is definitely a big community space. And we, the Youth Champion Awards has been there a couple of years in a row and things like that.
That's kind of like a force multiplier too for Nashua, because that building was empty for a while, or very underutilized, underprogrammed. The church, St. Patrick's, has really found like a renaissance, and we look at the new work they did with the Spring Street shelter and how it's even recognized as like a major historical restoration and all that kind of stuff. But it really started first with connecting with PAL and, you know, launching those programs there too. And having one of our major historic partners downtown have tenants and partnerships and collaboratives, as the alderman for that area, I think it's been very, very beneficial. Much as, you know, the main PAL site has been a part of a lot of things like the Tree Streets Block Party, the fire festivals before that, and a lot of other activities like National Goes Back to School, Lights On After School, all those types of things. Alderman Thibodeau, any questions?
No.
Anyone else? All right, well, keep up the great work. Thank you for coming to present.
Next up is Opportunity Networks.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Rocky Morelli. I'm the Executive Director of Opportunity Networks.
Rocky, our mics aren't that good, so you might want to do that again, just because you gotta speak right into them so they can hear you.
Sure. I am Rocky Morelli. I'm the Executive Director of Opportunity Networks, which I have been for the last 36 years. I can just kind of give a little endorsement here. You're talking about St. Patrick's Gym, and I actually participated in gym class there 50 years ago when I attended Spring Street Junior High, so certainly can speak to the age and its legacy. And I'd also like to give a shout out to the Nashua PAL program. Stephanie, our development director, and I we're affiliated with the Building on Hope project that did some work there, and that just great people and great programs. Okay, let me talk about Opportunity Networks. What we do is we work with adults with disabilities, developmental disabilities and acquired disabilities. We're primarily Medicaid funded through the state of New Hampshire with federal money. So our participants are all on Social Security. So they would qualify for low income funding. It's a long-term care model, and they are adults, so We provide a number of different types of supports to them out of our property at 116 Perimeter Road here in Nashua, where we've been located in Nashua since 1984. We've been at the Perimeter Road location since 1988. We assist people with employment. We do community participation and integration. Focus on a lot of key areas, including health and wellness programs, technology training, getting people involved in various community types of learning experiences, developing autonomy, independence, and a quality of life. For people that would pretty much be stuck at home if they didn't have safe, productive places for us to go, which also puts extra demands on families to be able to provide around-the-clock care if they didn't have programs like ours to assist. We're currently working with just around 30 individuals, families from Nashua. Our facility, we have closer to about 45, but there's some out-of-town people from the surrounding communities. We also have offices out in Amherst, which was the result of a merge in 2006. And then we opened up a new office in Bedford, ironically enough, in March of 2020, just as the pandemic started and the state shutdown order hit. So that was quite a challenge, but we made it through it and it's thriving. Prior to the pandemic, and I wish we could have meetings these days without referring to it, but it obviously still is having its impact, and we're still dealing with it and getting over it. We were working with about 40 families in Nashua. We anticipate getting back to that size. Our major challenge right now is workforce, requiring direct care staff. I'm sure you hear a lot about that from a lot of people. And we see some signs of it turning around a little bit. You know, we've hired a couple people over the last couple of weeks, so that's a good sign. Every staff person that we hire, we can provide services to an additional 2 to 5 people. So we anticipate getting back on our feet and growing our census numbers significantly. We basically saw about a third drop as a result of the pandemic in terms of people utilizing our services for various reasons. We are a community-based program, so people come into our facility and we go out to various locations and do different types of activities. So there's a lot of coming and going. I'd like to thank this committee for your past support of our program. You've helped us put in handicap accessible bathrooms with showers, and you helped us replace some windows for heat efficiency, and you also helped us install a handicap accessible automatic door. And what we're looking to do now is add a second door with a foyer internal into the building so that when people come in, they can use the one door because it's on a timer, it stays open, and right now it has direct access to the outside, so it's not resistant to weather impact, and it takes some staffing to be able to assist people with that process. And by adding a second door with an indoor foyer would allow people to independently come and go from the building and save money on fuel efficiency and things like that. But it certainly will promote independence, handicap accessibility, and just promote a better experience and quality for everybody. So those are, that's our request for this particular cycle. I'd like to thank you for letting me come tonight and for helping us in the past, and hopefully we can continue our relationship. I did have Mike Jungers come to our building, and he worked with us to plot out and look at kind of the layout to make sure that it was feasible. And he's working alongside with us and putting together and drawing up some plans. We've already started reaching out to some contractors to get some bids, so we got things well underway.
All right, just some context, I see Alderman Kelly. So you are a supported employment program,
Yes.
meaning you help individuals who are gaining employment both by having the connections and the partnerships to receive them, but then also have staff to provide on-site supports, job supports, maybe emotional or ABA types of things?
That's absolutely correct, and we deal with various levels of support. Some people need nothing more than just some outside coaching and counseling, or helping kind of work in terms of preparing resumes and finding job leads. Other people we are with full-time on jobs, part-time jobs, if that's all they're capable of, and support and work alongside of them. Work with the employers, act as a liaison for the employers to feel comfortable in hosting people with disabilities. Oftentimes, it's not that they don't want to get involved, but they're nervous about getting involved. They worry about liability. So we're able to not only support the individuals and help them develop the skills necessary to be successful, but help educate employers and build more of a diverse workforce, you know, throughout the community in the various places that we go.
Given the shortage of both clinical staff, which is widely discussed, as well as educator supports, pairs, that type of thing, I can assume that's the bottleneck you're talking about, where having the staff to actually go with the employees and provide that interface?
We were on a major growth trend prior to the pandemic, although there was workforce or signs of the workforce issue cropping up back then. It certainly has been really tough over the last couple of years. Like I said, I'm starting to feel like maybe it's lightening up a little bit. We have some younger people coming in now, developing it as a career path, which is very encouraging. You know, we had gone from basically like a $1.5 million annual budget to a $3.6 million budget. Right now we're floating around 2.7, 2.8, so we're kind of rebounding. We have a ways to go, but when we were growing, we were expecting to reach a $5 million plateau. That was within our reach and realistic. We have huge waiting lists for our services. There's a lot of pressure. There's family out there that need support. We want to be able to support them. We just need to recruit the staff to do it. And as we add staff, currently have about 30 individuals who their intakes are complete, they're ready to go. We hire staff, we start them turn them around very quickly. And there's additionals coming in. You're probably aware that populations of kids with disabilities coming through the school system seem to be increasing. So it's something that's going to have, you know, a bigger need in the future. And, you know, our model has been very successful, and, you know, we're excited about being able to serve more people. And we have the capacity, and when we go out in the community, we're able to take on people and kind of schedule things so the facility is optimized and the number of people we can serve is maximized.
Alderman Kelly, you've been very patient.
Thank you. And thank you for the work that you do in the community. I remember the bathrooms and all of the projects we've done.
Yeah, they were
together.
pretty bad, and they're awesome now. Things are great. You guys have been fantastic
Happy to
working with
help.
everyone.
As someone who had to use quite a few handicap accessibility things this year, I just have some interesting questions. I'm just trying to understand the scope of what so you're adding a door, right?
There's a door now on the outside wall of the building that goes outside where people come in
Yep.
through. And we want to add a second door for the reasons I stated. But rather than put it outside, which is kind of costly and might be difficult with weather and plows and those types of things, we actually have enough space within the room that it enters into to build basically kind of like an indoor foyer-way, entranceway, where we could have a second door. That would be an automatic door. So it would be a 2 automatic door system that people could access. Whether you're in a wheelchair, a walking disability, or just any other types of disabilities.
I know what that's like. So I understood the heating issue.
Mhm.
You were talking about staffing having to help more. Is it because the door that you have doesn't stay long enough, or I was just trying to understand.
Well, it
the
stays long
logistics
enough,
of it.
but, you know, getting people through the door and, you know, where the door's on a timer and stays open, just assisting people kind of like with the weather and those types of things and get them in. And then there's the people that are on the other side of the door that, you know, we got to kind of make room for people to come in and maneuver, especially power wheelchairs, very large and bulky. And, you know, a lot of people talk about, oh, our building's handicap accessible, and if you truly need a handicap, you've experienced this. That's not necessarily true. The way doors open and where they are and the space you have and the turn radius and all those things become very significant. So we've actually have enough space and people involved who have assessed it who think that this is very feasible and would have many benefits.
I hope you do a better job than our door over here.
Oh my gosh.
When everybody's city clerk's office opens if you look at it, and then it doesn't close until everybody's gone.
It is, as someone who has had a temporary disability and really had to live this for the last year, I'm just amazed at how things aren't necessarily up to code. I mean, going into a bathroom and the bar's the other side of the,
Oh,
you
it's
know,
crazy.
of the toilet.
Sometimes the door
or-
itself becomes a problem. They're like, oh no, there's enough room. It's like, open the door, there isn't.
Or your handicap parking spot, and then the curb cut is 2 blocks down.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so many things, so I really understand and appreciate
Thank
this, but
you.
just was trying to understand the logistics.
This
Yeah,
is the
no, it's-
perimeter road location, right?
yeah.
Okay, that's, I'm aware of a couple of programs that would identify as supported employment. Are you still a voc rehab vendor referral point?
Yes.
So that's hard to hold on to. And I know a number of other programs in the area that used to do that, haven't really been able to keep it, the model alive or the dedicated staffing for it and all that kind of stuff. I know the Easter Seals, I think, and Gateways have programs. Greater Nashua and Harbor Care have much more limited programs.
Right.
Where do you fall into that area? I think you're the higher level.
I've been doing
supports.
this a long time, and we've always kind of focused on employment. I'm actually a member of the statewide Employment Leadership Coalition, which is representatives from around the state. So I kind of have a senior presence on a lot of the employment groups and discussions. I'm a member of the Employment Leadership Awards Committee, which recognizes employers around the state. We select 5 employers each year that are given awards, recognized at a banquet, and featured in Business New Hampshire magazine. So,
And I'd want to say that the legacy kind of matters here, because if you're creating partnerships with businesses that are a little bit anxious about, like, well, we want to be responsible employers, and we want to engage people with, you know, diverse needs and that type of thing, but we
Yes.
want somebody who knows what they're doing, then having an organization that's been operating as long as yours is helpful.
yeah, I think it's really important. It's kind of ironic because right now there's a lot of job openings out there, but yet we struggle to have the staff to do the amount of movement and support that we need to do. So it's kind of like a pendulum thing. There's been other times where we have ample access to all the resources we need, but, you know, there weren't a lot of jobs available in the area. So, you know, it kind of comes and goes. So if I go back to the 80s, so I saw the trends of the 90s and the early 2000s, and, you know, you go through all those different things. But it is important because not only are we supporting those individuals, working with those employers is a very important piece. And you need somebody that has a very wide skill set to be able to do that. And typically, the types of people that work in our businesses grow through the human service organization. So when you talk to business people, it's a different language. And so you gotta really kind of become educated in terms of what's important to business people, what they're looking for, and kind of bring the two together and keep them working together and connected. So those are the challenges. But it's a very important program. And vocational rehabilitation on a state level is going through some changes as well. So so are a lot of the state offices. So we're kind of in this redesigned system and growth system in many of the state functions. But they're moving to the better. It's just a matter of getting the work done. And
Well, logistically speaking, a couple of years ago, they closed their national offices and moved up to Manchester. So having
crazy.
local organizations that can be a touch point and a connection for the people who need it is helpful, because you can't go check with your counselor in Manchester every time you need them. But
just
maybe if there are opportunity
not
networks
to
they
pick
have.
on my friends at vocational rehabilitation, but for Nashua, the second largest, you know, business industrial center in the state, and one could argue it's really right there with Manchester, to not have a local office.
Yeah, we're not gonna blame them.
It
That
doesn't
was
make any
state's-
sense,
The
yeah.
state's legislators
I get
decided
in
that
trouble if
one.
you pass that on, but we should have a Nashua office. There used to be a very effective Nashua office, but it's been a while.
But in the reality that we don't, then that's where organizations like yours that provide that extra level of
Yes.
interface can be very, very necessary.
Yep. And we go out to people if we need to, just like a lot of the others are saying. We have facilities and offices, but we're also able to go on the road and meet with people at convenient locations to assist them. And then, you know, with this whole technology age has helped too. Being able to meet over Zoom and whatnot, and give people opportunities and get people exposed to things. Many of the people we work with are younger and they don't have the experience base to really make their decisions off of, so we have to expose them to a lot. Because we make decisions based off of our experiences, so that's important.
All right, any other questions, Alderman Sapp?
Thank you,
We
Mr.
kind
Chair.
of got in a little individual conversation, I apologize.
No,
I
it's
love
good.
this stuff though, so thank you.
That's good, and thank you for coming in and giving this presentation tonight. I feel like every time I have a grasp on the organizations in our community that are doing work similar to what you do, another one pops up and surprises me, so it's always good to
Yeah, all the groups are very
broaden
needy
that
and worthy, and
perspective.
it's great, and I like being part of this little community. I was impressed by the other presentations as well.
I'm going to take a page out of Alderwoman Kelly's book here and ask, especially where this is a very specific project to solve a very specific problem that you've identified with your facility, were this funding not to be met to the level that you would need, what would be the path forward looking like for you, or a pivot point?
Well, we obviously think about these things, and we understand these projects are a little bit costly. It kind of surprises me when I see the numbers, but we do a number of established fundraisers that we have, so we do have some discretionary funds that we have control over. We're very well connected with some of the grant foundations. Like I said, Stephanie's our development director, so she spends a lot of time kind of mingling and getting to know these people. We've been working with many of them for well over a decade or two, so our local Rotary clubs. We have sources that if we have a base of funding, it's easier to go and ask other people to help finish it. We found, we were also part of that Building on Hope project, which was so inspiring because we were able to get so much. But when you have a base of people who support you, it's a lot easier to get people to add on than it is to go in cold and just start with one at a time. So we're very hopeful. And if we have to, we have some funds that we could probably designate to meet this need, because this is an important need for us, and it really has some great value, and it'll have a long-lasting effect on a lot of people. So I think I can get our board of directors to do what it takes to get us over the hump.
Well, you certainly know your facility better than anybody, I would imagine, working in there
yeah.
every day,
Yeah, when I walked in, it was just a slab, so it was just being developed. We were the first tenants, we're still there, so.
Well, thank you for coming on, offering the presentation tonight. I do
You're
appreciate
very welcome,
it.
and thank you for having me. And thank you guys for your service. It's great that you get to.
I didn't
be
want to
here and
dismiss you
support.
or anything. That's his job.
Alderman Thibault, any questions?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, I think we're
All
all
right,
set with the
thank you so much.
presentation. Thank you for coming up.
I'll say it very- Do you have a brother, Tim?
I do. I was gonna bring that up after.
Kinda looks like Tim worked for us back in the early
An
2000s.
age ago, yeah, like in the early 2000s, I think it was one of his first jobs.
Yeah, I think it might have been. He's doing well from what I see, so
Yep.
awesome. All right, thank you.
That concludes our presentations.
All right. So we already did new business, we already did communications. I think we are up, and we did table into committee.
Yes, we did.
General discussion. Any members of the committee like to bring up any issues to go discuss?
Why are you looking at me?
I was swirling my head
You've
around.
been very ambitious tonight.
Well, I've been asking appropriate questions of the organization. I do not have any discussion points.
Well, I mean,
What's
that's
your-
worth commenting on. We should all ask questions and engage when people are presenting, so it's a good thing that you're doing that. And Alderman Kelly, your questions are always on point.
Well, I also think that for people who are new to this committee, I hate to make them come back again and again, so knowing what questions we generally come up with as we move through this process. So oftentimes, I was gonna have general discussion, you forced me into it. Oftentimes, we get down to the nuts and bolts of what our money has, and then we have to make decisions. And so we get a little bit like, what would happen if we only give them, last year or 2 years ago, there were like maybe 2 restrooms that they wanted to do at Opportunity Networks, and so when we asked, they said, well, we focus on one, and then we'd come back with the other one. So that's why those questions were put out, so that when we go and there's never enough money.
Yeah, it will be very helpful to have that context when we're starting to have the conversation, because we want to figure out how we can make everybody get what they can work with, while being aware that it can't all come from one place. Any other discussion?
No, I want to say, I mean, we laugh, but I do appreciate the context of your questions. It helps me to guide what I'm looking for, especially with organizations that, I was certainly familiar with Nashua PAL and Nashua Children's Home. But like Lamprey is right down the road from my home, and I didn't know what they did in that building that I pass by every single day. So, as we really start to dig into this, it really helps to understand what we should be looking for. Because, like you said, there won't be an infinite pot of money, and it will be I'm sure at some point a difficult decision that has to be made.
I would imagine there's also a lot of cross-pollination happening because of the different presentations. United Way having a phone and computers program up and going, it's probably very interesting to have people who are helping people be placed in employment that are on a fixed income maybe, so they're not gonna have like unlimited riches, but they may have needs to meet. And similarly, Lamprey, being able to help patients who may not have telehealth access, organizations learn from each other too. So the reason we bring them up here isn't just because we like to grill people, it's because we want to understand what's going on in the community in order to responsibly allocate funding that we have available. And we want to make sure that they all are aware of it too. Because for every dollar we're able to give from the CDBG money that we get, there's probably a lot more interaction that's going to be worth more than that just because it started here and they were able to interact.
If I could add, I would say the other thing is that there have been times when we've chosen not to fund a certain project because the other ones were so, gravely in need or aligned. We have that action plan where we look at what are the things that we really need to focus on. And so guiding that and saying, well, this is really, we said housing is so important, so let's go with housing. And, we talk to, I'm not saying this is the case, Opportunity Networks or the Children's Homes always says, we have a good opportunity to reach out and help fundraise against stuff if we don't get the full funding. So having some sense around who can potentially pivot and who may not have the same access or large donor base, that kind of thing helps. It's not a fun, I love this committee because we also get to see the great work that is in the community, but when we get to the Excel spreadsheet and try to decide who gets what, it's really tough because they all do incredible work.
So good luck, clerk.
Oh yeah, that's a fun night.
Well, thank you. Get my wrist worked out.
Other discussion? All right, public comment. I don't actually see public here. If anyone wants to appear, you may comment. Remarks by aldermen. Any announcements, anything like that?
Got it.
Nothing over there. I would like to encourage anybody who hasn't already made their Valentine's Day plans at this point. Involved Impact is having Noche Fuego on Saturday. It's going to be a Latin themed night. We have Spanish food, music, all that kinds of stuff. It will support, among other things, the Honduras outreach team, which will be leaving next week. So I will be here from starting Thursday, the 22nd to the 29th. But then it also supports other things like the Tree Streets Block Party, Riverfest, Employment Connect, and a bunch of other things too. So feel free to check it out if anybody doesn't have plans on your Saturday night.
I'll actually just
Yep.
add to that since we brought up Saturday. I know at 10 a.m. out front here at City Hall, we'll be raising the Dominican flag in recognition of the 180th Dominican independence.
Yep.
So certainly if you have if you're looking for plans for Saturday morning, come out and take in that opportunity.
It's a good turnout. It's always a good part of our community too. It gets to celebrate their heritage. All right. Can I get a motion from Alderman Kelly?
Move to adjourn.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:23 p.m.